most accurate forecast from the First Coast News Weather Team, sponsored by AC Designs.
I know there's still those of you that like to track these tropical cyclones. I say that with a smile simply because it takes me back about 4 decades. Of course, we used to even send out a hurricane tracking chart, and folks would put it on the refrigerator. So this is still an attempt to do that in a way. So there it is. And I mention all that because we still show the coordinates. That's 12.2 north, 12.2 north. This is 10 degrees north latitude, 30 degrees. Jack's at about 30 degrees north latitude. And then in 48.6 west, so here's our longitude, 80, 70, 60, 50. Wow, yeah, that's over 2,000 miles off to our east and southeast. So it's a long way out there, folks. It has intensified a bit, sustained winds of 45 miles per hour. Forecast to get up to about 65, maybe gusts to 75. So even the official forecast now holds it just below hurricane strength. Might it for about 6 to 12 hours become a hurricane as it approaches the Caribbean? It might. And as it approaches what we call the Lesser Antilles. Again, if you're new to the area, maybe a good time of the year to do a little bit of geography. We call these the Lesser Antilles, the Greater Antilles. That is lesser, smaller islands, the greater, the bigger islands. Think pretty much Puerto Rico and then on west to Hispaniola and then Cuba and then into the west. Now, the overall course or cone hasn't changed much since yesterday, but there's much more confidence that it indeed is going to go west. And whereas yesterday the forecast was for it to briefly become a hurricane, now holding it below that. We'll get back to more of that in a moment. Also wanted to mention, though, the heat. Now, we've been talking since May that portions of Canada have been dealing with drought and record heat since May. Remember the wildfires they're still dealing with. And now that ridge of record heat is now beginning to build southward through the Dakotas and Minnesota, and even Texas has been dealing with record heat. I mention that because although that will be the persistent location of record heat probably for the next couple of weeks, occasionally some of those chunks of record heat will be approaching us. I'm not saying we're going to have record heat, but whereas we're at 87 right now, some of that will be approaching our areas. In fact, for those of you tired of the rain, remember, if nothing else, it does tend to keep the temperatures down. This is a big global perspective because this is the time of the year where us forecasters, we're working hard for you folks because literally, because in the tropics, we're looking at weather come off of Africa, and because of our weather pattern in the contiguous 48, it comes out of the Pacific and Canada. We're literally looking at the globe to try to figure out those 7-day outlooks. Can you see why down south we call these waves? Don't they kind of look like waves of energy? There's that system in the Caribbean we've been talking about for over a week, not going to develop, going to go to Mexico. The one to the east of Bret might be called Cindy. It's going to go over the Atlantic, but let's focus now on Bret. So this is the signature for Bret. And with more confidence now going to head to the west, and you might think, well, gosh, that's bad. That's heading more toward us. No, because we have plenty of confidence that with Bret goes west, it's going to hit shear. And remember, I think even Chris Porter could tell us, shear is our friend. You bet. So therefore, Bret goes west, 70% chance now that it's going to be sheared apart. I mean, if we could give the Jags a 70% chance to go to the Super Bowl, we'd feel pretty good about that. 20% chance, and I'm saying that only, that Bret recurves and stays strong. So looking good for us. As far as the thunderstorm pattern, I do think it'll decrease somewhat as we head toward the weekend. What about those hot temperatures? Look at Monday and Tuesday, at least middle 90s.
From the Farah and Farah Sports Desk, it's First Coast Sports.